I want to say right off the bat, I'm overwhelmed by the turnout tonight. It's really wonderful to see a full church. Okay. I was asked to speak about being the mother of a priest. I prayed throughout my young adulthood for confidence and contentment and direction in my own life and later in the lives of my children. I've had conversations with God for as long as I can remember. And I just didn't know that that's what they were at the time. They were conversations with God. When I became a mom, I began to have even more frequent conversations with God, at least daily, but I bet more often hourly. And I believe those conversations are prayer. And how do we use prayer to bless our children and to assist us as parents to maintain our sanity as we're raising them? I remember praying for the following things: health, happiness, safety, confidence, companionship, spirituality, and that their needs were met. As young men, for my own children and their friends, I prayed that they didn't become a parent before they were ready to parent. I prayed for their resilience and their inclusion, but I never prayed for winning, like a championship game or anything. I never prayed for that. I prayed that they would be good winners or good losers, but I myself am not competitive, although my children really, really are. And they were really competitive in sports, but I never prayed for winning. I just wanted things to turn out the way they were meant to turn out. The book series, The Power of the Praying Parent, if anybody's familiar with those, I brought 2 of the books today. If I could pass them, if there's a page you want, go ahead and rip it out or take a picture with your phone. But I really am very fond of these books. A friend brought them my way years ago. And they help us to pick things to pray for specifically. And we know that we're not going to stop praying for our kids, even as they turn into adults. In fact, sometimes people pray all the more when they're no longer in your care and you need to be concerned about them. But the books, they offer things like praying for their health, praying for addiction, praying for relationships, maintaining a job. Like, there are people that is keeping them awake at night. If it's keeping you awake at night, you need to pray about it and then give it to God. As they say, just give it to God. As far as prayer, in our home, we pray before meals and we talk about prayer. We talk about praying about something before we make a decision. So it's not uncommon to say, I'm going to pray about that. I'll pray about that. Meaning, I'm going to take a little time. And I think that's something all of us could do, rather than feeling compelled to give somebody an answer before you know for sure what your answer is going to be. Like being pressed for time. I'm gonna pray about that. I'm gonna take my time and pray about that. When it became possible, I guess I really need to say this. I did not pray that my children would become priests. I did not pray for that. I never even considered that option as they were growing up. It really never spent much time in my mind. When it became possible that they were both interested in the priesthood, I had a conversation with Father Meinrad at St. Mary's Parish. I told him I think both the boys are starting to become more seriously interested in the priesthood. He told me that my role was to remain neutral. I wasn't to support or disapprove of any of those decisions. I was simply meant to listen. I've heard that the role of the parent, every parent, is to provide safety, direction, and attention to their kids. More often than not, we want to be friends with our kids, and we're not their friend. Most kids really are able to gain friendships on their own, but we want to be their friend. They're genuinely not looking for that. They're looking for stability, rules, guidelines. That's really what they want from us. So I guess it's fair to say I really wasn't their friend. Not really, until you guys became adults. And I like having adult kids. I'm pleasantly pleased to have adult kids. But kids need parameters. They need time to make their own decisions about friendships. In my experience as a parent and as an educator, children want time with their parents. They really don't want much more. And we think that they do, and there's such a competition. We got wrapped up in it a little bit too. How about it? Just the, building your empire. And they don't want that. They just want your time. That's all they're looking for. They want their parents to speak kindly to each other, even if they don't live with each other. And we know that not every set of parents can live together. And that's just the way things work out. But wherever possible, to speak kindly about each other makes a world of difference. It's so important to them. Again, when the boys were young, we prayed for their safety, their confidence, patience, and understanding. We disciplined the twins. We spanked them. We put them in timeout. I used colorful language sometimes when I was overwhelmed or frustrated. We certainly didn't do everything right. There are things I wish I could do over again. And I would do them different. In hindsight, I would savor them as little people much longer. I would have held them more often. I would have worried less about the conditions of the house. And I would have read to them more. When people say that the days are long and the years are short, it really is true. All of a sudden, you have adult people. And it's such a short window. But I do recommend praying and having conversations with God, especially to relieve stress or to make important life decisions. When we talk about prayer, and I wish I would have talked to my brother prior to this, but I think he'll be okay that I share it. When Pope Francis came to Philadelphia, and we have a picture up here of our family in Philly. Joe's sisters and our family, we went to see the Pope. We parked our cars, we got on a train, and we went into the city. While we were en route on the train, I received a call from my twin brother, and he told me that our nephew had been in an accident and that he was life-flighted to Pittsburgh. We spoke briefly, and then we hung up. A few minutes later, he called me back and said, I'm not sure you understood how serious this is. There's a very good chance he's not going to make it. And so we talked on that train. Nicholas wanted to go to Pittsburgh, let's go now. And we talked about it. We were in a place, we didn't know where we were, we didn't know where our car was. We were on a train. We decided if we went to Pittsburgh, we couldn't be with them anyway. They wouldn't let us in. So we knew others were going. So we stayed on our trip to see the Pope. And it was devastating. It was very challenging. We got updates throughout the day, but at one point I received a phone call from my brother, whose child that was injured. And we stood on the street for hours waiting to see the Pope. And he tearfully told me how worried he was and how desperate he was for his son's survival. When we hung up, I stood there and cried on the street. And a woman I don't know came up and asked me what was going on, and I told her. she said, "What's the child's name?" And I told her. She yelled out, "Okay, everybody, now we're going to pray for," and she yelled out my nephew's name, and everybody around us bowed their heads and prayed. And I was overwhelmed with how people do that. And there's so much power in prayer. And we're convinced we have him now because of the power of prayer. He's now a freshman in college, and he's a Nittany Lion basketball player, and he's doing great. He's perfect. Another thing I wanted to share is that about judging each other, and I want to talk a little bit about Mother Mary. All mothers share the same feelings about their children, that they want their children to be happy and healthy. But we're not all given the same resources or the same supports. There are times that being a parent of seminarians has been challenging. One of the hardest days of my life was the day that we dropped Ben off at St. Mark's Seminary in Erie. He was 24 years old, but he was separated from his twin for the first time. And I think that day I realized that that was going to be it. That we weren't going back to those two being together, clowning around all the time. They were taking serious decisions and pursuing their separate lives. They were together all the way through elementary, high school, and college. My challenge also was in accepting my role as their mother, because I felt like that role was going to change. And I would ask, "What do you want from me?" And I did that repeatedly throughout my life. I know I did. Ask God, "What do you want from me?" But we knew we were leaving him in a positive place, in a happy place. And he never looked back. There was no second guessing. Ben was confident that what he was doing was what he was meant to do. As Ben and Luke became familiar with their roles as seminarians, I did continue to question my role as a mother. I felt a little bit territorial about sharing them with people I don't know or with parishioners. I worried that other moms might be replacing me. It wasn't until I had a conversation with Father Kinese's mom at Terry's house that I asked her, "Do you ever struggle to share Father Kinese with other people?" And she reassured me that she had such a grateful heart for the people that reached out and took care of her son when he moved to a different area and celebrated holidays and dinners with him. I'd like to thank the people of DuBois who wholeheartedly welcomed my child. 30 years old, but it's still a challenge when you see your child venture off. I also appreciate the family. There's a very loving family that celebrated his 30th birthday with him and their child, and that was so meaningful to us because we certainly couldn't all be together. Throughout the journey to the priesthood, Joe and I began to recognize changes in our relationships with other people as well. We often wondered if people felt that we were holy rollers or we were somehow judgmental. And we didn't believe we changed, but we worried a lot that people thought we did. There were times we felt we were on an island. The discernment to the priesthood is a very lengthy process. And the parents need that lengthy process as well as the young man in pursuit of priesthood. We know that in the future we may be called upon to talk with other families who have a seminarian. It can be a very lonely place. It can be a very different adjustment. We did share that with the boys along the way, how we felt about the seminary or how we felt about our relationships. And I can remember Ben saying one time, "Can you imagine how hard it must have been to be Jesus' mother?" Like it must have been so challenging. Did she have friends who she treated differently? We know that she was. Was she ever included or invited? Was she even acknowledged? If we feel left out, I can only imagine where she was at that time in her life. I also think about single parents as well. How challenging it must be to do everything alone. And it truly is our job to reach out to people that are single parents. That really could have been any one of us for any number of reasons. But I often think about Mary and how she was treated by other women. And do we stop and think about that and think about other women who need us? And finally, I'm down to the last 2 pages, I'll be fast. There's a reason that we're all here. And we've had different challenges along our parenting. Joe and I both were diagnosed with cancer in our 40s. There were many times that I questioned why me, and especially why Joe. Like, we had already done this once, and then we had to turn around a year, 2 years later and go through cancer again. And we know that the answer to that clearly is, well, why me? And the answer is, why not you? But every obstacle that was sent to our way, we believe was God's way of telling us to slow things down, to refocus, reprioritize what was important in our lives. And just a reminder that life is a very precious gift. As we continue to ask ourselves the questions of, what am I here for? What do you want from me? We come to realize that to whom much is given, much will be required. We are all held responsible for what we have. If we've been blessed with talents, wealth, knowledge, time, and the like, we are expected to benefit others. From everyone who much has been given, much will be demanded, and from the one who has been entrusted with much, much will be asked. And to quote Dr. Phil, life isn't a dress rehearsal. We only get one opportunity to do this. What do we want it to look like? I've shared with my students and with my own family, as we go through this and we discuss our purpose, the answer really is clear and it's right in front of us. What is my purpose? What do you want from me? We're all here to help other people. That's the whole reason we're here. And it's amazing that we don't see that every day. And that's something I think I have to remind myself every day. We're all part of something much bigger than ourselves. It is a gift to be the mother of a priest and a seminarian and a 22-year-old boy. It's been a wonderful assignment. I have to remind myself they don't belong to us. They're borrowed. None of us own our children. They're truly just borrowed. God lends them to us. He entrusts us to take care of them. Another phrase that I think comes to mind once in a while is, I am third. And if we can remember our place in life, that I am third. God first, others, and then me. And my 3 final thoughts. Bring your children to church every week. Find the Mass that suits your family and make it a priority. Jesus wants them there. They're meant to be there. And he appreciates when you bring them. The next one is to pray, and to pray very often. Even if it is just conversations that you're having with God in the car as you're driving along, frequent conversations. And again, the final thing is that we're just here to help each other. Hopefully we're going to help each other get to the next great thing. We'll see each other in heaven. Okay, thanks.